Good afternoon. As most of you know, there's a vacancy in District 14 for the Maryland General Assembly. We've decided to have some of the candidates here who would like to have that job, and we'd like to welcome them. We have Paul Schwartz, we have Doug Terry, we have Matt Post, and we'd like to give them an opportunity and to speak and tell us what's on their minds, how they can fill this job, what their experience is, and take it away, Paul.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Paul Schwartz, and I am running to fill that soon-to-be vacant District 14 delegate position in the House of Delegates. I've been a resident of that suburb of Olney. Some of you may have heard of it, Brookville. I've been in Brookville for over 25 years with my family. My career goes back to mostly at the federal level, a federal service level. I was a federal official with U.S. Customs. I was the Director of Trade Enforcement. Then after, when the Department of Homeland Security stood up, I went over there and helped integrate the 26 disparate federal agencies under one umbrella. And then after Katrina, I went over to FEMA. I was asked to go over to FEMA, and I worked on trying to work with the state and local governments to identify vulnerabilities before the big event came, not during. And why that's important is because I was involved in crafting legislation and the associated regulations to cover not just what needed to be done, but how and by whom. And combined with my work after I retired from federal service at the state level as an advocate for key issues, that puts me in a great position to hit the ground running if I am fortunate enough to be put in the position of delegate representing District 14. At the state level, I've been the state chair of legislation for national active and retired federal employees. In that capacity, I was instrumental in getting that bill passed last year to help seniors retire in Maryland rather than go to Delaware or Pennsylvania. They may go to Miami for the weather. They don't go to Delaware or Pennsylvania for the weather. They go there for the tax benefit, for the cost of living. And when seniors leave the state to retire elsewhere, they take their tax money, their buying power, and their community service with them. So that was key. And the sponsors of that bill, both Democrat, Sarah Elfreth, and Republican, Hershey, came to me to help craft that legislation. And we finally got it done, and it was unanimous. But that's an example of how I worked. They talk about working both sides of the aisle. I worked both sides of the aisle to get that bill passed. And keep in mind that seniors are a key constituency. According to AARP, there are now more seniors over the age of 50 in Maryland than there are students in our school system. So there's nothing to be taken lightly. And when they leave, they impact the economy. But that's not my only issue. I talked about advocating at the state level. I was advocated strongly for the Firearm Safety Act of 2013. And while I was signing in to testify before the Senate Judiciary Committee on that bill, you have to put in either your A, against the bill, or F, for the bill. The person to my left was against the bill, and he was number 2000. I was for the bill, and my number was number 22. And Kathleen DeMay pointed out to me, she said that it's important for these bills, these issues be taken seriously, have to show both sides of the issue, that there's a constituency for it, as small as it may be in terms of representation at the hearing, but in reality, it was the majority of the people who wanted gun safety. My work with the federal government, worked closely with the ATF to close the gun show, help close the gun show loophole. We need to codify that. When I say hit the ground running, issues like codifying what constitutes a commercial sale of guns is critical if I'm fortunate to get to Annapolis. Other issues. I talk about healthcare, the pharmaceutical pricing. Right now, the pricing on pharmaceutical companies only apply research and development costs to domestic sales, not to foreign sales. When they try to institute the federal level, the Inflation Reduction Act, they tried to get that bill in, but they couldn't get that issue resolved. You need to do it at the state level. They were able to put a cap on insulin for at $35 if you're on Medicare. We need to get it where it's for everybody, and that has to be done at the state level because they couldn't do it at the federal level. And the last issue I'll talk about is long-term care insurance. The budget for Maryland, 25% of it goes to Medicare. The biggest cost of Medicare is nursing homes. We need to have incentives to get long-term care insurance covered so that people stay out of the nursing homes longer, and that has an impact on our overall economy, and that's what I hope to do when I get to Annapolis.
Thank you so much, Paul Schwartz. We'd like to hear from Matt Post now. Matt, please introduce yourself and tell us why you're running.
Hi folks, my name is Matt Post. Grew up not too far away from, we're recording this right now in Brookville and James Creek. Went to Brook Road, Farquhar, and Sherwood. Coached pre-team at Manor Oaks and James Creek. Volunteered at the Only Farmers Market. Played a lot of different sports at OBGC, but was not particularly good at any of them. And I'm also a former school board member, a gun safety advocate, a local nonprofit leader here in the community. And I'm running to fight for this district, which has been home my whole life in the state legislature. Our district today faces profound challenges of education, of democracy, of safety. And this moment demands that our next representative arrive in Annapolis ready. Our next delegate must be ready to navigate elected legislative office. I've done it. As a former member of the school board, I have a track record of getting big stuff done, like expanding pre-K and securing more mental health supports for students. Our next delegate must be ready to bring more people into our democracy. At March for Our Lives, it was my work to activate disaffected voters and bring them into the political process. And that's the kind of work I want to bring to this role. Our next delegate also must be ready to represent the unique needs and concerns of this community. This district made me who I am, and I'm ready to continue fighting for us in Annapolis. I briefly want to discuss 3 issues I hope to prioritize as our area's next delegate. Our schools are understaffed and overcrowded. Gun violence is near an all-time high, and our government is too inaccessible for too many. On schools, I think we need to bring back more state dollars for overdue construction projects in the district. We need to make sure that the state's multi-billion-dollar education plan, the blueprint, and its transition to universal pre-K and higher teacher pay happens quickly and equitably. On gun violence, I think we need to follow the lead of other states around the country in strengthening concealed carry permitting here in Maryland and requiring the safe storage of firearms. I also think we should lead the rest of the nation in new and innovative models of gun safety, like massively investing in violence intervention programs and hospital-based support for survivors. On democracy, we need a delegate who's going to work constantly to make sure that everyone feels heard and seen in our political process. And this is not something you can hold the legislature. You need somebody with experience connecting with disaffected voters who's going to work their tail off to make sure that everyone's voice feels heard. That's just a little bit about me and what I hope to accomplish as a delegate, but I'm looking forward to continuing the conversation with folks across the district about the future of our community. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Matt. We would like to give the opportunity now to hear from Doug Terry. He's a lifelong journalist, documentary producer, and writer, also executive producer of the Nonprofit Emergency Response Network. He's lived in the county for 34 years. Doug, take it away.
Okay, thank you very much. I decided to enter this race, even though at the time there would be 11 other candidates. One has already withdrawn, because I'm opposed to the system that's being used to replace vacancies or fill vacancies in the legislature. We need to make it more democratic. We need to involve the people more directly than we are now. This does not mean that the Democratic Central Committee needs to give up its role. I think they could play a vital role, perhaps in nominating 2 or 3 candidates and then having some kind of formal mechanism. But on other issues, that's a secondary issue, but I think it's important because we need to protect and expand democracy, particularly because our democracy is under threat right now across the country and right at the Capitol building on January 6th. Some other issues that are important to me, I would love to see if we could create some sort of corporate and government and people's reconciliation commission, like modeled on what they did in South Africa. Peace and reconciliation, or accommodation and reconciliation, whatever you want to call it. We need to look at the root causes of racism across the board. Many people don't know that there were restrictive covenants on buying and selling houses, that you could not put a minority in a house. This isn't ancient history. This went on until like the late 1950s, early 60s, and a lot of those deeds are still out there. So there are other examples of repression of Black people and the ability to minorities to gain wealth and pass along generation wealth. We need to study these, we need to come up with a plan, and we need to act on it. A couple of other things very quickly. I would like to see an innovation fund created where new businesses and people with new ideas can get a little bit of seed money, both through the government and perhaps through other methods as well, to kickstart businesses, to get things going better and faster, and to make our state an innovation state. Two other points. I think we need a master's driver's license program to teach people how to drive in emergency situations. People are dying unnecessarily. People are being maimed for life. It shouldn't just be a matter of you get your license and you go off for the next 40 years doing whatever you feel like. We need to teach responsibility and ethics in driving. And one final point, in the Up County area, I know there's concern about development there. Those solutions need to be developed between the local community and the county, and then they can come to the state. Otherwise, the job of a legislature, as I see it, is to watch for the details and be very careful, and I hope you'll support me. Thank you.
Thank you. We'd like to thank Paul Schwartz, Doug Terry, and Matt Post for taking the time to come out here. I hope that the public will pay very close attention to this, and thank you so much.